And when you look at the actual data, rather than people's fears, the actual data shows that, like, for example, between 2010 and 2020, 15,000 children were either on a waiting list or being treated by the Gender Identity Development Services, the largest paediatric gender clinic in the world at the time, in the Tavistock in London. And of those 15,000 children, 4 died by suicide on the waiting list and 2 were being treated with gender-affirming care. So it's kind of equal whether they were being treated or they weren't. But 4 out of 15,000 is not an elevated rate of suicide among vulnerable youth. And these are vulnerable youth. And so if you compare this with anxiety or autism or OCD or other ADHD, you'll see that it's pretty much on a par with other vulnerable youths. So it isn't an elevated statistic. When you put that statistic with another piece of evidence that, again, only I'm interested in long-term quality evidence. And the other piece of kind of long-term quality evidence that we have is among adults who've transitioned. And the long-term quality evidence from 2011 this is, and it followed people over a 40-year period in Sweden. Now, Sweden was one of the most pioneering, and it is the most pioneering for medical transition. They pulled back recently, but they pioneered medical transition among children and among adults. And they brought out, they looked at the deaths and they realised that for people who have medically transitioned, these are not people who are on waiting lists as children, these are adults who have medically transitioned, they're 19 times more likely to die by suicide post-medical transition. So therefore, if you look at the two facts, you're looking at, one, it's not elevated, it's just on a par with other vulnerable youth. That's pre-medical transition. And then post-medical transition, it is actually elevated. So medical transition is not a cure-all. In fact, medical transition contributes to a risk factor to make it more likely that you might die by suicide. Now, I say that very carefully. I'm not weaponizing it. I'm just pointing to the data that we have. I think it's a myth has gone along that this is some sort of, if people don't, would you rather a live trans kid or a dead kid? This is hysterical, inaccurate, misinformed, highly irresponsible sloganeering that people are using because they are pro-medical transition. And it has to be combated as vigorously as possible.